a terrifying but true story I experienced when I was 12. I moved to my dad's house when I was 10 and didn't know anyone in the area except for the family my dad was friends with. It was a single mom with 3 kids, but luckily, there was a girl a couple years older than me, 12 at the time I met her, and we got to know each other a little over a couple years. We weren't close, but we ended up having the same friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out with her and her younger brother. They happened to be in the house alone because my friend's mom was at work, which is where this gets terrifying and sad. Her mother has been helping this one lady through her work and got to know her fairly well. She found out her sister was in a mental institution and was let out recently. The night Rob was hanging out with my friend, they got a knock on the door. My friend thought it was just their mom. She knocks a certain way when coming in, and answered it without thinking. Rob wasn't supposed to be there, so he took off through the window to his house down the road. He never thought twice about it. It wasn't her mom. It was the sister of the lady her mom was helping, and she figured out through talking to her sister where this family lived and the mom's working schedule. She came in, and this is where I don't know the details, and I'm glad I don't. My friend's younger brother ran to the neighbors to call the police. The lady brutally murdered my friend a week before Christmas. She decapitated her and left her body, naked, in a bathtub. Hide her head. They had to look through the presents, and I don't know where they found her head, but they did. I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral.
I have a grandma who is about 75 years old now, and she currently lives alone. Her whole family has passed away, and she's the only one remaining. My family often helps her with her household stuff and health because there aren't many people she can rely on. I was so young when her brothers and sisters passed away, so I can barely remember some of them. But I can still remember the funeral of her brother. Moreover, she has a big backyard. So after the deaths of the family members, their ashes were also buried there. Not long after, she called one of my aunts and said she made lunch for 3 people, but others hadn't eaten it, so she had to throw it out. My aunt was too stunned. She has asked her, "Isn't it only you? Who are the other 2?" Then my grandma told her that her brother and sister were also there, and that's why she made lunch for everyone. This is already so freaking disturbing. But then she told my aunt that her brother and sister were playing by hiding behind the curtains. And sometimes they wake her up by scaring her in the middle of the night. This freaked out my aunt, and she told us to check on her.
Way back in 5th grade or so, I discovered a glorious Pokemon-themed chat room through the wonders of Yahoo. Within this chat room, there were maybe 15 regulars, generally between the ages of 12 and 16 or so, and we had a great time role-playing various anime characters and storylines. Anyway, I got to know a few people from there well enough to chat with them on AIM or by phone, and a few of those friendships lasted a good 4 or 5 years. One of these guys was a little eccentric. He loved creature monster models and stories, stuff like Godzilla, Spawn, whatever. He believed in things like chupacabras, which I thought was silly but didn't really care, and he lived out in the boonies in some Midwestern state, which all seemed like hickland to my young West Coast mind. After getting to know him pretty well and having a good 100 hours of phone conversations over the years, he finally revealed this lovely story. He told me that sometimes he would black out and wake up to discover that he had, or was still in the process of, hurting or torturing animals and children. He had quite a few cousins and neighbor kids who lived nearby, and apparently he had killed some animals. When he revealed this to me, I felt sick inside. I love animals, and this information chilled me to the bone. It was really hard for him to tell me this, and he confided that I was one of the only people he had ever been able to tell. Then it got weirder. Someone in his family, or maybe a family friend, decided that he must be possessed by a demon and that they had to perform an exorcism. They did it at night, of course, in a dark room lit by candles, and he was tied to the bed because they didn't know how the demon would react. He was choking up as he described this part. I could hear his voice quivering because he was so emotional and terrified at this part of the story. He described a pretty creepy process, but the worst part was the end. He said they heard something hit the floor under the bed when the demon left his body, and then something scrabbled across the floor and out of the room in the darkness, leaving claw marks in the wood floor. He was totally and completely serious about this and how it cured him, and he didn't hurt anyone.